I'd like to ask how you both got into wine, and when I was reading your website, you said that you started at 11.
Yes, approximately 11. It's a very strange story, and I'm not sure why it happened that way. But when I was 11, I read an article in a newspaper about someone who made wine at home. Actually, it was a priest who made wine, and I thought that was fun. It sounded fun. So I started to make wine when I was 11.
Wow.
My grandfather had one of the big glass bottles, Demi-Johns, and my mother took me to one of the supermarket sales after Christmas, and we bought Christmas sales figs, and I made wine from figs when I was 11.
Wow. Because I was going to ask, how many grapes do you get in Sweden?
I made wines from
fig
figs,
wine.
from what's it called? Gooseberries, yes, I think.
Yeah.
From apples, from red currants, but never from grapes.
I actually tasted this wine he did made. I
And
mean,
we're still married.
many years after, and it was actually pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Have you kept it, or do you keep making it?
I think no. I made it. I think I made it for 4 or 5 years, something like. I didn't drink it. Maybe I should say that I didn't drink it. I wasn't really interested in drinking it, and so it just piled up in the cellars of my parents' house.
And how did you transition into grape wine as a drinker?
I guess I realized sometimes I realized that there are more interesting things than that kind of wine. Why that happened, I'm not quite sure. But when I was in what do you call it, college, when I was between 15 and 18, I started to be interested in real wine. So I read about wine, and even though I was too young, I tasted a bit of wine. I was one summer in the U.S. in California when I was 17 and 10 months. My birthday is in September. And California had strict regulations at that time, and well, they still have in the US. So the people I lived with, they would not let me taste wine at all the wineries that we went to visit. We went to visit a few wineries, and I was 2 months too young to taste wine. I was very annoyed.
Okay, and how about yourself, Britt? How did you get into wine?
Well, I was a little bit older than Per. When I started drinking wine, it was more not small wines like Liebfraumilch, you know, the German slightly sweet wines.
Yeah.
So a lot of people start off like that, and I did too. It became a little bit more serious, but I think I was 25, 26, a little bit by accident. We were a few friends starting a wine club. And then I joined another wine club, and I took some courses and discovered that it was quite fun. So that's how it started. And then I met Per, because he was also so passionate about wines. Yeah.
And how have you developed, because you have a wine business together, not in producing, but in creating content and tours. How have you managed to develop this wine business together, and what have been the greatest challenges in working as a couple to create this business, and what have been the strengths?
Well, it started out, we moved to Paris.
Because of my job in a totally different business.
Yeah, but that was the first step.
Yes.
Because we lived in Stockholm, the two of us, and we were both involved in, we were both doing a lot of wine tastings at the time in Sweden in the 80s. And when we moved to Paris, so Per had a totally different job, and he had another career, and I joined him in Paris, and I started a little bit working with wine, but in a small scale. But
so
that's how
you started giving courses, tastings,
writing a little bit,
and you worked as a consultant for one of a Swedish wine merchant in Paris.
Yeah. So I had I did some serious work, and I learned a lot, and well, that's how it started. And then Per changed jobs a few times. Yes, and well. After a few years, after had stayed in Paris. We had moved to Holland. We lived in Amsterdam a few years. We came back to Paris, and finally, Per didn't work in his. Per had some problems. Well, your job.
I didn't.
Your
have
society.
No.
Where we worked.
I was working in a. This was in 2003 approximately.
Yeah.
It was the dot-com boom. I was working in the technology industry. I was working with business development in a very big internet-related company, which was doing very well during the dot-com boom and not so well when it ended. So the company disappeared essentially.
So yeah, we had already started. I had already started, or we, because you helped me out even if you had your normal job. We had already started doing wine tours in a smaller scale. We started talking about trying to do a living from the wine tours. It took some thinking. It took some. It wasn't obvious.
It wasn't really intentional, I would say, because at that time there was no jobs in my industry, so there was no point in looking for a new job. So instead of just getting disappointed all the time by looking for jobs that weren't there, I went on some of the wine tours, helped carrying bags and things like that. And then after having done that for about a year, I think it was, then we said, well, maybe I need to do some serious job searching. Or we do something from this. So that's how it started.
Yeah, we decided
this business that we're doing now with writing and photography, which is part of the business, and the wine tours.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I mean, the wine tours are really the most important.
Financially.
Financially, for earning our living, it's the wine tours.
Excellent.
But everything else we do is also very good for marketing purposes.
Well, I think I think it's something that is very. How do you say it? It's organic or holistic or something. We do a lot of travel because of our wine tours. And because of all this travel, we visit a lot of wineries, and we travel to wine regions about 100 days in a year, all over the world essentially. This gives us a lot of information and a lot of contents. We meet 200 wineries in a year, which gives us a lot of stuff to write about. People who really know what they're talking about tell us how they make wine, and so this gives us a lot of contents that we can make into articles and books and things like that.
Excellent. So. And we're meeting today in Mendoza. What are some of your favourite wine regions to visit? And I like to ask you both separately, just in case you have different answers.
All right. Okay.
Do you have a favourite wine region to return to?
I think it's difficult. I really love to go to Chile and Argentina and South Africa. But it's not fair to Europe. I mean, it's because it's a little bit more exotic to go to the wine regions outside of Europe. So I would like to say for Europe also I have some favorite wine regions, and one is the Rhone Valley, the southern Rhone Valley with the Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and the other one is Burgundy.
Fabulous. And how about yourself?
It is a very difficult question because almost all the wine regions are fantastic and very interesting to go to. The long distance wine tours are really very nice and very exciting. So South Africa and South America. Douro Valley is spectacular as a wine region, and it's so much things happening there. If you want to have really good food, you go to Bordeaux. But I think
favorites.
I think the what is really exciting is the next new place. It's a bit like wine. I don't have a favorite wine. It's the next place. If I would say one favorite, it's probably the Languedoc that we really liked, which was our first book. because it's you have a lot of very exciting wines there, which are very little known, and and it's beautiful. It's wonderful climate, and you have really talented winemakers, and it's just a nice place with lots of good wine and food.
Excellent. And is there any wine region that really surprises your tour guests when they go? Is there anyone that they're really, surprised at what they find?
Yeah. Well, the Douro Valley, I think, because they can't really imagine that the slopes are so steep, and the wines are so good as well. No, I think Douro Valley, by the beauty of the landscape, and then maybe more.
Yeah, I think one country that we haven't mentioned so far, which is Italy. Which is also a fantastic wine country, but it's also a country that surprises a lot of people who don't know very much about Italy, in particular southern Italy, Sicily, where people have the they think about Sicily as powerful and heavy wines, and you can find it, but they have excellent wines, both white and reds, or Puglia, which has also really very nice wines if you know where to look, and it's so beautiful. So I think
Yeah.
And tell us how your experience is living in Paris, because you've been there for over 20 years now. What do you, in terms of wine, what do you enjoy there? Do you enjoy just drinking only French, or do you discover it as a city that is a hub of international wine? How is your experience for wine in Paris?
It is mostly French. I mean, even if Paris is the place in France, if you want to look for non-French wines, it's still mostly French wines. And we drink, when we were in France, in Paris, at home, when we go out in Paris, it's mostly French wines.
But that's because there is so much of it, and it's so good.
It's not. You don't really miss. I mean, we're Swedish, so we used to. When we lived in Sweden, we were used to being able to find wines from different countries. But it's normal in a non-producing wine country to find wines from all over the world, like in Britain. But in France, we don't really miss it, because we do discover all the regions in France.
But in fairness, though, I think if you want to have foreign wines, not French wines, you can find it, because there's plenty of it.
Yeah.
And it's changed during the few years we've been there. It has changed very much. If we go to the supermarket, to Monoprix, you have a whole range of non-French wines, even California.
Yeah, at the supermarket now you can find the inexpensive foreign wines. And then you can go to cavistes, the wine shops, and there you will find pretty expensive foreign wines, very expensive also. So yes, you have the possibility if you like. We don't do it. I would say we don't do it, because we drink non-French wines when we go to other countries. When we go to Sweden, or if we go to when we were in Italy, Austria, Portugal, Spain. I mean, we travel so. And sometimes we buy wines when we are in these countries and bring back home, and then we drink them, of course. But we very seldom buy foreign wines in Paris.
Excellent. And then my last question is really themed around Scandinavia, because a lot of the writing that you do and the books that you've written are aimed towards a Scandinavian audience.
Yes.
So how have you seen the wine market there change in the last 20 or so years?
It's changed a lot. In the last, did you say 20, 30 years?
You can talk about whichever period you like.
I mean, because we lived there until 1990. I mean, we go back regularly, so we know what's happening. But when it's changed a lot, because people now drink wine, they drink more wine, and they drink better wines. So, and another thing that is very important with Scandinavia, that's the gastronomy, not the gastronomy, the restaurants, the cuisine, you find, at the time when we lived there, you didn't really find many good restaurants. People didn't drink wine, And it started in the 80s and continued 90s, and I would say the last 15 years, maybe 15, 20 years, Sweden have, and also Denmark and Norway have started to discover wine and gastronomy. So you have restaurants, you have high quality restaurants, you have a lot of sommeliers, you have so many sommelier schools now. So it's so totally different. And I would say the Scandinavians are good wine tasters today. You find a lot of wine connoisseurs in Scandinavia.
Yeah, it's developed very much.
Yes.
You have a lot of many people who are very interested in wine. The market is still restrained by the fact that it's monopoly, so you really have a very limited range of wines available on the market, but it's still it's a pretty good range of wines, and people are really enthusiastic in learning about it.
And you have wine clubs, so people taste a lot of wines together with other people, and it's that's good for us because these people, they come on our wine tours.
And they read our books.
And read our books, yes.
And are there any emerging trends in wine that you've spotted that you think will develop in 2018 in the Scandinavian?
In Scandinavia? I think it's difficult because less Italian wines.
Probably. I mean, Italy is by far the biggest supplier.
It's so big.
And it's been, on the upper end of the scale, it's been very, very focused on Amarone. So very powerful, very heavy, solid wines.
Yeah.
And that is, Swedish people are crazy about Amarone.
Yeah.
And I think that trend, or it's changing a little bit, that people are moving away from it.
Yeah, I think they're moving a little bit to French wines. France is actually now number 2nd for white wines. Yeah, maybe not for red wines, but France is doing a comeback. I mean, France used to be the biggest wine country in Sweden, but that was a number of years ago now. But France is making a comeback. So I think people are looking more for elegance and less heavy wines. But it's a difficult trend because when I meet, I do a lot of wine tastings in Sweden, and when I meet consumers, they often like these heavy oaked wines anyway. So it's difficult to say what the trend will lead to. It's not obvious. It's difficult.
Yeah.